The morning sun cast long shadows across the rubble that used to be downtown Chicago. Commander Sarah Chun stood on the roof of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching smoke rise from 3 different districts. 18 months ago, this view had been skyscrapers and busy streets. Now it looked like the end of the world. The aliens had arrived on a Tuesday. Sarah remembered that detail because she had been drinking coffee and reading reports about grain shipments when the first ships appeared in Earth's sky, 5 different species, all working together, all wanting the same thing. Earth, they called themselves the Kethver Confederation. The name meant nothing to humans, but their weapons spoke a language everyone understood. Plasma beams that could melt through steel. Energy shields that stopped bullets like they were raindrops. Ships that moved faster than anything humans had ever built. Sarah touched the scar on her left cheek. A gift from a Kethver plasma rifle during the Battle of New York. She had been lucky. Most people who got that close to alien weapons did not live to tell about it. "Commander Chun, we have the morning briefing ready," said Lieutenant Mills, stepping onto the roof behind her. Sarah turned away from the destroyed city. Mills was young, maybe 25, with the kind of eager face that made Sarah feel ancient at 38. The boy had joined the Defense Force just 6 months ago, right after the aliens destroyed his hometown of Portland. "Any good news today, Mills?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Depends on how you look at it, ma'am. The aliens still will not attack the southern regions. They completely avoid anything below the 60th parallel." Sarah frowned. This had been going on for months now. The Kethver would attack cities, destroy military bases, and fight human forces everywhere on Earth, everywhere except the far south. They would not even fly their ships over Antarctica. "Have our negotiators asked them about it again?" "Yes, ma'am. Ambassador Rodriguez brought it up in yesterday's ceasefire talks." The alien representatives just changed the subject. "But Rodriguez said they looked nervous when he mentioned Antarctica." That was strange. Sarah had seen Kethver warriors fight human soldiers without showing any fear. These beings could destroy entire city blocks with their weapons, but they got nervous when someone talked about a frozen continent. They walked down the stairs into the briefing room. The walls were covered with maps showing red zones where the aliens controlled territory and blue zones where humans still held ground. There was a lot more red than blue. Dr. Marcus Webb was already sitting at the table, looking tired. Webb was the smartest person Sarah had ever met, a scientist who studied alien technology for the Defense Force. He had bags under his eyes and his gray hair stuck up in all directions. "Morning, Marcus," Sarah said, sitting down across from him. "You look like you have not slept in days." "I have not," Webb said, opening a thick folder full of papers. "I have been studying the communication equipment we captured from that Kethver ship last month." "Sarah, I found something very strange." Sarah leaned forward. Any information about the aliens was valuable. "What kind of strange?" Webb pulled out several sheets covered with symbols and numbers. "I managed to break into their encrypted files. Most of it is battle plans and supply lists, normal military stuff. But hidden deep in their systems, I found these." He spread the papers across the table. The symbols looked like nothing Sarah had ever seen, but there were also star charts that she recognized. Earth was marked clearly, along with several other planets. "These are not invasion plans," Webb continued. "These are old files, maybe thousands of years old, and look at this." He pointed to a section of text that had been translated into English. "They call it the Sleepers of the Frozen Throne." "What does that mean?" "I do not know yet. But every reference to Earth in their old files mentions Antarctica. And Sarah, they are not talking about conquering it. They are talking about keeping something contained." Mills looked confused. "Contained? What could be in Antarctica that aliens would worry about?" Webb rubbed his tired eyes. "I think the Kethver did not come here to take over Earth. I think they came here to make sure something stays buried under the ice." Sarah stared at the alien symbols. This changed everything. "You are saying they are not invaders?" "I am saying they are guards, and they are terrified of whatever they are guarding." The briefing room fell silent except for the distant sound of plasma fire from somewhere in the city. Sarah tried to process what Webb was telling her. The most powerful military force humanity had ever faced was not trying to conquer them. They were trying to protect something. Marcus, I need you to find out more about these sleepers. Whatever is down there, it has kept the aliens from finishing this war. The military leadership will not approve any mission to Antarctica, Webb said. They think it is too dangerous to split our forces. Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see HFY fighters flying patrol routes over the city. For 18 months, those ships had been symbols of human defeat. Now they look different. They look like prison guards. The aliens have been fighting us for a year and a half, she said slowly. They have better weapons, better ships, and more soldiers. They could have destroyed every city on Earth by now. But they have not. They are holding back. Because they are afraid to damage whatever is in Antarctica, Webb finished. Mills shook his head. This is crazy. You're talking about going to the most remote place on Earth while we are fighting for our lives. Sarah turned back to the table. Mills, what if we are not fighting for our lives? What if we are fighting for something much bigger? She picked up one of Webb's translated papers and read it again. The words "frozen throne" stood out like a warning. Whatever was buried under 2 miles of ice had kept Earth's most powerful enemies from completing their mission. Marcus, how long would it take you to organize a small expedition? Webb's eyes widened. Sarah, you cannot be serious. Going to Antarctica without authorization would be treason. Staying here and losing this war slowly would be worse. Sarah folded the paper and put it in her pocket. If the aliens are afraid of something down there, maybe we should find out what it is. Maybe it is the key to ending this war. She looked at both men. Mills still looked confused, but Webb was starting to understand. How long, Marcus? Webb sighed. 2 weeks. Maybe less if I can get the right equipment. Do it, and keep this between us for now. As Webb gathered his papers, Sarah returned to the window. The HFY ships continued their patrol, keeping their distance from human positions but never leaving the sky. They were not acting like conquerors anymore. They were acting like guards who were afraid their prisoners might escape, but what? If humans were not the prisoners? What if something else was locked away beneath the ice, something so dangerous that 5 alien species had united to keep it contained? Sarah touched the scar on her cheek again. In 2 weeks she might have answers. Or she might have started something that would change everything. Outside, the alien ships continued their endless watch, never knowing that the species they were fighting had just decided to look for the thing they feared most. 2 weeks later, Dr. Marcus Webb stood in a freezing wind at McMurdo Station, Antarctica. The abandoned research base looked like a ghost town. Ice covered everything, and the buildings creaked in the wind like old bones. The last scientists had left when the war started, taking most of their equipment with them. Sarah Chun pulled her thick jacket tighter as she walked between the empty buildings. She had brought only 5 people with her. Webb, Lieutenant Mills, 2 engineers named Torres and Kim, and a communications specialist called Jackson. They had told their commanders they were investigating alien communication signals in the southern hemisphere. It was not exactly a lie. The deep scanner is working, Torres called out from inside the main laboratory building. She was a small woman with steady hands, perfect for handling delicate equipment. We should be able to scan down to 3 miles through the ice. Webb connected his laptop to the scanner and started the first sweep. The screen showed layers of ice, rock, and more ice. Antarctica was 2 miles thick in most places, built up over millions of years of snowfall and freezing. There, Webb said, pointing at the screen. Look at that. At exactly 1.8 miles down, the scanner showed something that was not ice or rock. It was too regular, too geometric. The shape stretched for miles in every direction, like a massive building buried under the frozen continent. That is not natural, Mills said, staring at the screen. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. They had found something. Something big enough to scare aliens who could destroy cities. Can we get closer readings? she asked. Torres worked on the controls. I can focus the scan on smaller areas. Give me a minute. The new scans showed more detail. The buried structure had corridors, chambers, and what looked like machinery. But the strangest thing was that parts of it seemed to exist in impossible spaces. Rooms that were bigger inside than outside. Hallways that curved in directions that should not exist. This technology is beyond anything humans have built, Webb said quietly. Beyond anything the Kethver have shown us too. Jackson, who had been monitoring radio signals, suddenly looked up from his equipment. Dr. Webb, you need to hear this. I am picking up transmissions from the alien fleet. He put the signals through the speaker. The alien voices sounded agitated, almost panicked. Webb had learned enough of their language to understand basic words. They are saying something about the ancestors waking up, Webb translated. And they are talking about withdrawing to a safe distance. Sarah looked at the scanner readings again. The aliens know we are here? No, Jackson said, checking his instruments. They are not tracking us, but they are monitoring something else. Energy readings from deep under the ice. Torres ran another scan, this time looking for energy signatures. The results made everyone in the room go quiet. The buried structure was generating power. Not much, but it was definitely active. How is that possible? Mills asked. That thing has been buried for thousands of years. Maybe longer, Webb said, studying the energy patterns. These readings suggest the structure is responding to our presence. Like it knows we are here. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. We need to get down there. The others stared at her. Torres was the first to speak. Commander, that is almost 2 miles of solid ice. We do not have equipment that can dig that deep. We do not need to dig, Sarah said, pointing at the energy readings. Look at these thermal signatures. The structure is generating heat. The ice directly above it is already starting to melt from below. Webb ran calculations on his laptop. She is right. At the current rate of melting, there will be a natural opening in about 72 hours. The structure is creating its own access tunnel. Kim, the second engineer, shook her head. That means whatever is down there wants us to find it. That night, Sarah could not sleep. She stood outside the laboratory building, looking up at the southern lights dancing across the Antarctic sky. The cold was sharp enough to hurt, but she needed time to think. Mills found her there an hour later. Could not sleep either, he asked. I keep thinking about what Webb said. If this structure is older than human civilization, who built it? Maybe we do not want to know, Mills said quietly. Sarah was about to answer when Jackson came running out of the building. Commander, you need to see this. The aliens are doing something strange. They rushed back inside. Jackson had multiple screens showing satellite feeds of the Kethver fleet in orbit above Earth. The alien ships were moving into new positions, forming a defensive ring around the planet. They are not preparing to attack, Webb said, studying the formation. They are preparing to defend. Defend against what? Mills asked. Webb pulled up more of the translated alien files. I found more references to the sleepers. According to these records, they are not just buried technology. They are beings. Ancient beings that ruled the galaxy before any current species evolved. Sarah felt cold that had nothing to do with the Antarctic wind. You are saying there are living creatures under the ice? I'm saying there might be something that was once living. Something powerful enough that the Kethver built their entire military strategy around keeping it contained. Torres called out from the scanner station. The melting is accelerating. We will have access in 24 hours, not 72. As if responding to her words, the building started to vibrate slightly. It was barely noticeable, but everyone felt it. Like a heartbeat coming from deep underground. Jackson checked his instruments frantically. The energy output from the structure just doubled. And I am detecting some kind of electromagnetic pattern. It is regular, like a signal. Can you decode it? Sarah asked. I can try, but it is unlike anything in our databases. Webb was staring at his laptop screen with a strange expression. Sarah, I think the signal is not random. Look at these patterns. He showed her the data. The electromagnetic pulses were coming in complex sequences, too organized to be natural but too alien to be easily understood. "It looks like language," Sarah said. "Or music," Webb replied. "Or maybe both." Mills walked to the window and looked out at the ice. "Commander, what if we are making a mistake? What if the aliens are right to keep this thing buried?" Sarah joined him at the window. In the distance, she could see a faint glow coming from beneath the ice. The structure was definitely waking up. "Maybe," she said. "But the aliens have been fighting us for 18 months. They have killed millions of people and destroyed dozens of cities. If there is something down there that scares them, maybe it is on our side." Torres looked up from her instruments. "The ice is cracking. I can see stress fractures forming in a circular pattern about half a mile from here." They all went outside to look. Even in the dim Antarctic light, they could see dark lines spreading across the white surface like a spider web. The ground was warm under their feet, and steam was rising from the cracks. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked. 6 hours, Torres said. "Maybe less." Sarah looked at her small team. They were about to discover something that had been hidden for thousands of years. Something that 5 alien species considered dangerous enough to start a war over. "Get the equipment ready," she said. "We are going down there." As they prepared for the descent, none of them noticed that the alien fleet above Earth had stopped all offensive operations. The Kethver ships were now focusing their sensors on Antarctica, watching and waiting for something their ancestors had warned them about for generations. Under the ice, ancient systems continued to wake up, responding to the presence of a species they had been waiting to meet for 50,000 years. The opening in the ice appeared at dawn. Sarah Chun stood at the edge of the hole, looking down into darkness that seemed to go on forever. Warm air rose from the depths, carrying a strange smell like metal and electricity. The hole was perfectly round, 20 feet across, with smooth walls that looked melted rather than carved. "The scanner shows the bottom is about 50 feet down," Torres said, checking her equipment. "There's a solid platform to land on." Webb was taking readings with every instrument they had. "The electromagnetic activity is off the charts. Whatever is down there, it's definitely awake now." Sarah tested the rappelling rope one more time. She would go first, followed by Webb and Mills. Torres and the others would stay on the surface to maintain communication. "Remember," Sarah said to her team, "if anything goes wrong up here, get back to the base and radio for extraction. Do not try to come after us." She stepped to the edge of the hole and began her descent. The walls around her glowed with a faint blue light that seemed to come from within the ice itself. As she went deeper, the air grew warmer and the strange smell stronger. Her boots touched solid ground. The platform was made of some kind of black material that was neither metal nor stone. It was perfectly smooth and warm to the touch. "On down," she called up through her radio. "Sending Webb down now." When all 3 of them were on the platform, they found themselves in a circular chamber about the size of a basketball court. The walls curved up and disappeared into darkness above them. But what caught their attention was the doorway. It was clearly not human. The opening was too tall, too narrow, and covered with symbols that seemed to move when nobody was looking directly at them. Soft light came from beyond the doorway, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "My equipment is going crazy," Webb said, staring at his readings. "The electromagnetic field here is unlike anything on Earth. It's like standing inside a giant computer." Mills pointed his flashlight at the symbols around the doorway. "These markings, they look familiar somehow." Sarah felt the same thing. The symbols were completely alien, but something about them seemed almost recognizable. Like a word on the tip of her tongue that she could not quite remember, they stepped through the doorway and into a corridor that defied everything they knew about physics. The hallway stretched ahead of them for what looked like miles, but Sarah's depth perception told her it should not fit inside the space they had seen on the scanner. "This is impossible," Mills whispered. "The scanner showed this structure as maybe 5 miles across. This corridor alone looks longer than that." Webb was taking measurements as they walked. "The space is folded somehow." We're walking through dimensions that exist on top of each other. The walls on either side of them were covered with more moving symbols. As they walked, the symbols began to glow brighter, as if responding to their presence. The air hummed with energy, and Sarah felt a strange tingling in her mind. After what felt like an hour of walking, they reached another chamber. This one was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows high above them. And it was not empty. Floating in the center of the room were dozens of crystal formations, each one about the size of a car. They hung in the air without any visible support, glowing with soft light that pulsed in rhythm with each other. The crystals were beautiful, like enormous diamonds, but there was something alive about them. "Webb?" Sarah said quietly. "Are those?" "I think they're some kind of storage system," Webb said, approaching one of the crystals carefully. "But not for data. For something else." As he got closer to the nearest crystal, it began to glow brighter. The light spread to the other crystals, creating a chain reaction that filled the entire chamber with soft illumination. Then Sarah heard the voice. It was not spoken aloud. The words appeared directly in her mind, clear and unmistakable. The language was not English, but somehow she understood every word perfectly. "Welcome, inheritors. We have been waiting." Mills stumbled backward. "Did you hear that?" "You heard it too?" Sarah asked. Webb was staring at the crystals with amazement and terror. "They're not storage systems, they're beings. Conscious beings preserved in crystalline matrices." The voice spoke again, seeming to come from all the crystals at once. "We are the precursors. This world was once ours, as were countless others across the galaxy. We have slept here for 50,000 of your years, waiting for our successors to find us." Sarah found her voice. "Successors? What do you mean?" The largest crystal, floating in the center of the formation, pulsed with brighter light. "You are humanity. You are what we created to replace us." "Created us?" Mills said. "That's impossible. Humans evolved naturally." "Evolution was guided," the voice replied. "Your species was designed to inherit our role when the time was right. The test has been administered. The results have been observed. You have passed." Webb stepped closer to the speaking crystal. "What test? The war with the Kethver?" "The Kethver and their allies are our children, as are thousands of other species across the galaxy. They were given a single mission: to evaluate humanity when your species reached technological maturity, to determine if you were ready for the truth." Sarah felt her world shifting around her. The invasion was a test? Every species that achieves spaceflight is tested in the same way. Most fail. They respond to invasion with genocide, with hatred, with the desire to destroy all who oppose them. But humanity has shown something different. The crystal formation began to rotate slowly, casting moving patterns of light on the chamber walls. In 18 months of warfare, humans have not once attempted to completely destroy their enemies. You capture rather than kill when possible. You seek to understand your opponents rather than simply defeat them. You show mercy even when mercy is not deserved." Mills shook his head. "But we've killed thousands of aliens. We've destroyed their ships, their bases. You have defended yourselves as was necessary for the test. But you have not pursued total war. Even now, faced with superior technology and overwhelming odds, humanity seeks negotiation rather than mutual destruction. This is why you were chosen." Webb was frantically taking notes on his tablet. Chosen for what? The chamber around them began to change. The walls became transparent, showing views of space filled with stars and planets. To become the new guardians of the galaxy. To guide younger species as we once guided yours. To make the choices we could not make. Sarah saw images of countless worlds, some primitive, some just beginning to reach for the stars. "What happened to you? Why did you stop being guardians?" "We became too powerful. Our very presence prevented younger species from growing, from developing, from becoming what they could be. The galaxy stagnated under our rule. We realized that true leadership sometimes requires stepping aside." The images shifted, showing the precursors in their physical forms. They had been tall, graceful beings with large eyes and 4 arms. But even in the images, Sarah could see the sadness in their faces. We withdrew to our sleeping chambers across the galaxy, waiting for a species that could take our place. A species that would be powerful enough to guide others, but wise enough to know when not to interfere. Webb looked up from his tablet. But why us? Why humans? Because alone among all the species we have tested, humans possess the one quality that defines true leadership, the ability to choose compassion over conquest. You could have developed weapons to destroy the Kethver fleet. Your scientists had the knowledge. Instead, you chose to seek understanding. The crystals began to pulse faster, and Sarah felt something changing in her mind. Information was flowing into her consciousness, knowledge about technology and science that humanity had never discovered. The awakening begins, the precursor voice said. Your species will now inherit the tools and knowledge necessary to guide the galaxy. But more importantly, you will inherit the wisdom to use them correctly. Around the chamber, ancient machinery began to activate. Lights flickered on in patterns that seemed to extend beyond the physical room. Sarah realized that what they had found was not just a buried city. It was a control center for technology that spanned the entire galaxy. The war is over, the voice continued. The Kethver fleet will withdraw and await your instructions. They have served their purpose as teachers and will now serve as your first students. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity was about to become the most powerful species in the galaxy. The question was, would they be worthy of that power? The first change Sarah noticed was in her vision. The chamber around her became clearer, more detailed. She could see layers of technology in the walls that had been invisible before. Complex energy patterns flowed through the air like visible rivers of light. What's happening to us? Mills asked, but his voice sounded different, clearer, like he was speaking with perfect understanding of every word. Webb was staring at his hands in amazement. I can see the molecular structure of my skin. I can understand how every cell works. He looked at his tablet and laughed. This technology that seemed so complex an hour ago, ... It's like a child's toy now. The precursor voice spoke again, emanating from all the crystals at once. Your species is receiving the genetic inheritance we placed within you 50,000 years ago. The knowledge, the capabilities, the understanding that was locked away until this moment. Sarah felt information flooding her mind. Mathematical concepts that had no names in human language became as simple as counting. She understood how to bend space and time, how to manipulate matter at the atomic level, how to communicate across vast distances instantly. But more than knowledge, she felt something else changing. A sense of responsibility that went deeper than anything she had ever experienced. She could see the galaxy spread out before her mind like a map, with thousands of young civilizations taking their first steps toward the stars. The burden is heavy, the precursor voice said, somehow reading her thoughts. We know this feeling well. To have the power to guide or destroy entire worlds. To know that your decisions will affect billions of lives across thousands of planets. Mills was looking at the star patterns on the transparent walls. I can see them, all those worlds. Some of them are just discovering fire. Others are building their first spacecraft. Each one will need guidance, the voice explained. Each one will face the same tests your species has faced. The question that drove us to our long sleep: how do you help a species grow without preventing them from becoming what they are meant to be? Webb had connected his tablet to one of the crystal formations. The information flowing between them was incredible. You made mistakes, didn't you? You interfered too much. We did. We thought that our advanced knowledge meant we always knew what was best. We prevented wars by removing the need for species to learn diplomacy. We solved hunger by providing endless resources, removing the drive for innovation. We eliminated disease, death, struggle. Sarah was beginning to understand. And without challenges, the species stopped growing. Exactly. The galaxy became a garden tended by careful gardeners. Beautiful, peaceful, and completely stagnant. No new ideas emerged. No species developed beyond what we allowed them to develop. We realized that our greatest gift to the galaxy would be to remove ourselves from it. The chamber around them continued to transform. New displays appeared, showing real-time information about every inhabited world in the galaxy. Sarah could see the Kethver fleet above Earth, their ships now holding a defensive position instead of an aggressive one. But you didn't just disappear, Mills said. You created us to replace you. We studied every species we had guided, looking for the qualities that would make ideal guardians. Intelligence was important, but not most important. Creativity mattered, but not above all else. What mattered most was the ability to know when not to act. Webb looked up from his tablet. Restraint. Restraint. The wisdom to watch a young species struggle with a problem they could solve themselves, even when you could solve it for them in seconds. The strength to let others make mistakes so they can learn from them. Sarah thought about the 18 months of war with the Kethver. Humanity had developed new technologies, new strategies, new forms of cooperation between nations. The invasion had forced the human race to grow in ways that would never have happened during peacetime. You could have ended the war at any time, she said. But you let us struggle because the struggle itself was important. Every species that reaches this point faces the same choice, the voice confirmed. They can become gardeners, controlling and managing the galaxy. Or they can become teachers, guiding when necessary but allowing others to find their own paths. The knowledge flowing into Sarah's mind included memories from the precursors themselves. She saw their civilization at its height, spanning thousands of worlds, controlling the development of countless species. She also saw their growing realization that they had created a galaxy of children who would never grow up. The loneliness was the worst part, the voice continued. When you are the most advanced beings in the galaxy, there is no one to talk to as equals, no one to challenge your ideas, no one to teach you new things. We became gods, and gods have no friends. Mills was studying the star charts with his enhanced vision. So you created us to be your equals, not your subjects. We created you to be our successors, to learn from our mistakes, to find the balance we could never achieve. Webb disconnected from the crystal and looked at his companions. I can feel it. The genetic locks in our DNA are opening all across the planet. Every human on Earth is going through the same transformation we are. Sarah could sense it too. 7 billion minds suddenly expanding, suddenly understanding concepts that had been beyond human comprehension just hours before. But along with the knowledge came something else. A deep, instinctive understanding of responsibility. The transformation is not just intellectual, the precursor voice explained. Your emotional capacity is expanding as well. You will feel the joy and suffering of other species as if they were your own people. This empathy will guide your decisions when raw logic fails. Sarah closed her eyes and reached out with her new senses. She could feel the Kethver soldiers in their ships, confused and afraid as they realized the test was over. She could sense their relief that they would no longer have to fight, mixed with anxiety about what would happen next. They've been waiting for this moment for thousands of years, she said. All 5 species in the Confederation have served as testers for different candidates. Most species they tested chose violence over understanding. The Kethver have watched 17 civilizations destroy themselves rather than pass the test. Webb was accessing more information from the crystals. What happens to them now? To all the species that have been serving as testers? They become your students, your partners, your friends? They have knowledge and experience that will help you avoid the mistakes we made. But they will look to humanity for leadership, for the final decisions about how the galaxy should be guided. The weight of responsibility was enormous, but Sarah found she was not afraid. The transformation had brought with it a confidence that felt entirely natural. She understood now that this was what humanity had been evolving toward for thousands of years. There's something else, Mills said, studying the star patterns. I can see other locations like this one. Other sleeping chambers. Across the galaxy, our people slumber in hidden places. As you take on the role of guardians, they will begin to awaken. Not to rule again, but to serve as advisors, to share what we learned during our long reign and our longer sleep. Sarah opened her eyes and looked at the crystal formation. You're not really gone, are you? We are changed, as you are being changed. We exist now as we choose to exist. Some of us will remain in this crystalline state, observing and advising. Others will take physical form again to explore this new galaxy you will create. We are no longer the gardeners, but we can still be teachers. The chamber filled with a warm, golden light. Around them, the ancient machinery hummed with life as systems that had been dormant for 50,000 years began their work of transformation. The real test begins now, the voice said softly. Knowledge is easy to give. Wisdom must be earned through choice and consequence. The galaxy is yours to guide humanity. Do not repeat our mistakes. Sarah felt the full weight of the future settling on her shoulders. 7 billion humans were about to become the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The question was not whether they could handle that power, but whether they could resist the temptation to use it. 3 days after the awakening, Commander Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the HFY flagship, looking down at Earth through the massive viewing window. The planet looked different now. Not because anything had changed on the surface, but because she could see it with new eyes. She could sense the 7 billion human minds below, all of them still adjusting to their transformation. Some were handling the change better than others. Scientists and engineers were celebrating as they suddenly understood technologies that had puzzled them for decades. Children were adapting fastest of all, playing games with abilities that would have seemed like magic just a week ago. Commander Chun, said Fleet Leader Vorthak, the tall, four-armed being who commanded the HFY forces. His skin was gray-blue, and his large eyes showed emotions that Sarah could now read as easily as human expressions. My people are ready to hear your first instructions. Sarah turned from the window. The bridge was filled with alien officers from 5 different species, all of them watching her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. These beings had been her enemies for 18 months. Now they were waiting for her to lead them. Before we discuss instructions, Sarah said, I want to understand something. How long have your people been testing other species? Vorthak's expression showed something like pride mixed with sadness. My grandfather's grandfather served in the first test almost 3,000 years ago. We have evaluated 47 species across the galaxy. Yours is the first to pass. What happened? To the others? Most destroyed themselves within the first year of contact. Some lasted longer, but eventually chose genocide over understanding. A few simply gave up, accepting defeat rather than continuing to fight. Vorthak paused. Only humanity chose to study us, to try to understand us while defending themselves. Dr. Webb, who had come up from Earth just hours ago using technology he now understood perfectly, stepped forward. Fleet Leader, what did you think of us? Honestly? Vorthak made a sound that Sarah's enhanced mind recognized as laughter. We thought you were weak at first. Your weapons were primitive, your defenses easy to overcome, but then you began to adapt. You learned from every battle, improved every strategy. Most impressive, you captured our soldiers alive when you could. Have killed them. Lieutenant Mills, now serving as Sarah's aide, looked confused. That surprised you. Every other species we tested saw us as things to be destroyed. You saw us as people to be understood. You studied our language, our culture, our technology. You treated our prisoners with respect even when we showed you none. Sarah thought about the prison camps where they had kept captured HFY soldiers. Human doctors had treated their injuries. Human scientists had studied their needs for food and air and shelter. It had never occurred to her to do anything else. That's just basic human decency, she said. It is basic human wisdom, Vorthak replied, and it is why you were chosen. A communication screen activated, showing the face of President Martinez. From Earth, the transformation had affected him too, and Sarah could see the new understanding in his eyes. Commander Chun, the president said, we're getting reports from around the globe. The enhancement isn't just intellectual. People are reporting increased empathy, stronger emotional connections to others. Is this normal? Webb answered before Sarah could respond. According to the precursor records, yes. The genetic modifications include enhanced mirror neuron activity and expanded limbic system function. We're becoming more capable of understanding and sharing the emotions of others. In simple terms, Sarah added, we're becoming better at caring about each other and about other species. The president nodded. That explains why the riot stopped. We were expecting panic when the transformation started, but instead people are helping each other. Even the looting stopped when people realized they could feel the shop owner's distress. Sarah had noticed the same thing. The new human empathy was not limited to their own species. She could sense the emotions of every alien on the ship around her, their hopes, their fears, their genuine desire to serve under human leadership. President Martinez, she said, I recommend we begin by ending all hostilities immediately. The Kethver forces are ready to stand down. Already done, the president replied. We've also received communication requests from 12 other species. Apparently word travels fast in the galaxy. Vorthak stepped closer to the screen. President Martinez, those species have been waiting for this moment. Some have young civilizations under their protection. Others have problems they hope humanity can help solve. Sarah felt a moment of panic. 12 species, each with their own needs and problems. How was humanity supposed to guide them all? Then she remembered the precursor warning about trying to control everything. The answer was not to solve every problem, but to help each species find their own solutions. We'll meet with them, Sarah said. But we're not going to make all their decisions for them. We're going to help them make their own decisions better. Over the next several hours, Sarah and her team worked with the alien commanders to plan the transition. The Kethver forces would withdraw from Earth, but not disappear. They would establish a joint base on the moon, where humans and aliens could work together as equals. The most surprising moment came when Vorthak asked about the human prisoners they had taken during the war. We have nearly 2,000 of your people in detention facilities across our ships, he said. We treated them well, as our ancestors instructed, but we know they wish to return home. Sarah expected to feel anger about the prisoners, but instead, she felt something else, curiosity. What did you learn from them? That humans never stopped trying to escape, but they also never stopped trying to help their fellow prisoners. Even in captivity, you formed communities, shared resources, cared for the sick and injured. It was further proof that your species was ready for leadership. Mills looked amazed. You were testing our prisoners too? We were testing everything. How you fought, how you negotiated, how you treated enemies and friends alike, how you behaved when you thought no one was watching. Dr. Webb was taking notes as fast as he could write. This is incredible. You've been conducting the most comprehensive psychological evaluation in galactic history. We had to be sure, Vorthak said simply. The precursors made their mistakes because they chose the wrong species to lead. We could not afford to be wrong. Sarah looked out at Earth again, thinking about the future. Humanity now had the knowledge and power to reshape the galaxy. They could eliminate poverty and disease, prevent wars. But the precursor warning echoed in her mind. Too much help could be worse than too little. Fleet leader, she said, I want to ask you something important. In your opinion, what is the greatest danger facing humanity as the new Guardians? Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. The same danger that faced the precursors. The temptation to fix everything, to make every decision, to remove all struggle from the galaxy. Your enhanced empathy will make this even harder. When you can feel the suffering of others as your own pain, the urge to stop that suffering immediately will be overwhelming. Sarah nodded. She could already feel it. The knowledge of poverty and disease and conflict across the galaxy was like a weight on her heart. Every instinct told her to use humanity's new powers to fix everything right now. But suffering teaches strength, Vorthak continued. Struggle creates growth. Challenge builds character. Your job will be to help species grow strong enough to solve their own problems, not to solve those problems for them. Webb looked up from his notes. How do we know when to help and when to step back? You will learn, Vorthak said. Just as the precursors learned, but hopefully with less pain for those you guide. Sarah made her decision. We start small. We help where we're asked to help, and we try not to make things worse. We watch, we learn, and we remember that our goal is to create a galaxy of strong, independent species, not a galaxy of children who need constant care. The communication screen activated again, showing President Martinez. Commander Chun, we're ready to address the global population. The people need to understand what's happening to them and what comes next. Sarah looked around the bridge at the alien officers who were now her partners rather than her enemies. She thought about the billions of humans below who were still learning to use their new abilities. She considered the young civilizations across the galaxy who would be looking to humanity for guidance. The responsibility was enormous. But for the first time since the war began, Sarah felt hope instead of fear. Tell them the truth, she said. Tell them that humanity has just become the guardians of the galaxy. And tell them that our first job is to learn how to be worthy of that responsibility. As the flagship prepared to return to Earth, Sarah stood at the viewing window one last time. The war was over, but in many ways the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity would have to prove that they could succeed where the precursors had failed. They would have to learn to guide without controlling, to help without interfering, and to care without smothering. It would not be easy, but Sarah believed they could do it. After all, they were human, and humans had always been good at learning from their mistakes.